The Untold Life of Princess Leonor, the story before the uniform, before the military uniform, before the royal ceremonies, before the world began watching her every move. There was a young girl growing up under an extraordinary secret, a secret that wasn't really a secret at all. Princess Leonor was born with a destiny already waiting for her. But here's the question: what was her life really like before she began preparing for the military? Because behind the polished royal photographs, behind the elegant dresses and carefully planned appearances, there was a childhood that many people never got to see. And some of the most important moments in Leonor's life happened long before she ever stepped into a military academy. So today, we're going back to the beginning. And the story may not be what you expected. On October 31, 2005, Princess Leonor was born in Madrid. Her arrival was celebrated across Spain. But from the moment she entered the world, Leonor's life was already different. She wasn't simply the daughter of a future king. She was the firstborn child of Felipe and Letizia. And that meant her future was already connected to the Spanish crown. Imagine being born into a family where your childhood photographs could become part of history. Imagine knowing that one day, millions of people could be watching you. For Leonor, this wasn't something she chose. It was simply the life she was born into. But behind the royal title was still a child who would grow up with her younger sister, Infanta Sofia, and their relationship became one of the sweetest parts of the Spanish royal family's public image. The sisters appeared together at important family events, celebrations, and ceremonies, but there was something that made Leonor's position different. While Sofia was growing up as the younger sister, Leonor was growing up as the heir. And that difference would shape almost everything that came next. For most children, childhood is a time to make mistakes, to experiment, to discover who they are. But for Leonor, even ordinary moments could attract attention. Her clothes were discussed, her appearances were photographed, her expressions were analyzed. And as she grew older, the public began asking a question that would follow her everywhere: what kind of queen would Princess Leonor become? Yet before she could answer that question, she had to become a person first. And education became one of the most important parts of that journey. Leonor studied in Spain before taking a major step that would temporarily take her away from the royal environment. She traveled to Wales to attend UWC Atlantic College. And suddenly, the future Queen of Spain was experiencing a very different world. Instead of being surrounded by royal protocol every day, she was part of an international school community. She encountered students from different countries and backgrounds. She continued her education in an environment that emphasized international understanding and social responsibility. And for Leonor, this chapter was significant. Because the future monarch wasn't being prepared only to wear a crown. She was being exposed to a world much bigger than the palace. But there was still something waiting for her when she returned home. Something much bigger. Something that would change the public's perception of her forever. In 2023, Princess Leonor turned 18. And suddenly, the little girl Spain had watched growing up was an adult. But this wasn't just another birthday. It was a moment filled with historical significance. Leonor took the oath of allegiance to the Spanish Constitution before the Congress of Deputies. The symbolism was impossible to ignore. The future Queen of Spain was standing before the nation's lawmakers. And in that moment, the distance between childhood and destiny seemed to disappear. The cameras were everywhere. The world was watching. And Leonor appeared ready. But what the public saw that day was only the beginning. Because waiting for her was another major chapter. One that would take her far away from the elegant royal appearances many people had become accustomed to: military training. And this is where her story took an unexpected turn. For years, Leonor had been prepared academically and constitutionally for her future role. But military training introduced an entirely different challenge. She would have to adapt to a demanding environment built around discipline, responsibility, teamwork, and service. The transition was dramatic. The princess who had spent years attending royal ceremonies was now entering a world where expectations were different. And suddenly, the question wasn't just, can Princess Leonor become queen? The question became, can she handle the responsibilities that come with being commander-in-chief? That question would become increasingly important as she continued her military education. But perhaps the most fascinating part of the story is that the preparation didn't begin at the military academy. It began years earlier. Every public appearance, every speech, every educational experience, every moment beside her parents, every ceremony where she stood quietly and observed, all of it was part of a much larger journey, a journey toward the crown. Today, when people look at Princess Leonor, they may see a young royal navigating an extraordinary path. But to understand the woman she is becoming, we have to remember the girl she once was, the child who grew up in Madrid, the older sister who shared her childhood with Sofia, the student who left Spain to study abroad, the young woman who stood before the Spanish parliament at 18, and finally, the future queen who stepped into military training. Her story is not simply about royalty, it's about preparation, it's about responsibility, and perhaps most importantly, it's about growing up while the entire world is watching. But there's one question that remains unanswered. When the day finally comes for Princess Leonor to inherit the crown, will the world see the same young woman who entered military training? Or will years of discipline, responsibility, and public service transform her into something completely different? Because the truth is, we haven't reached the end of Princess Leonor's story. We're only watching the beginning, and the little girl who was once photographed beside her parents may one day become the woman standing at the center of Spain's future. The crown is waiting, and Princess Leonor is still preparing.